Okay, everybody, just wanted to show you the project I got going on here. A little remote charging station for my battery planes, recharging LiPos, recharging cameras, cell phone while out in the field. Won't have to return to the house to charge anything. Put together with a few simple components here, really. Now, I do have a bigger system already that I'm going to use to power the entire RC Taildraggin workshop. I've got 6 70 amp hour batteries, a 60 amp charger, a 2000-watt inverter, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So yeah, basically this is it. Got a one single 100-watt panel there, charge controller, inverter, and then I have a 12-volt battery down inside the box here. Okay, so going over some of the individual components here, we have the solar controller here, charge controller. Now this is a very simple one. This is just a 10 amp controller. It has its pros and cons here. Now, one of the pro things, well, actually, let me talk about the cons things first here. So it's not programmable in a manual way. In other words, it does a good job detecting the battery that you have and set up all the charge parameters, but you can't adjust those at all. Say you're out on a really super hot day, the battery's really warm. You know, I might not want to charge it all the way up to 14.1 volts or 20 amp hours. May want to let it sag a little bit underneath there just to control the temperature. You can't do that manually, but this is a nice little box for people who have never done this before because it is fully automatic. And I did compare the manufacturer's charge characteristics that they list in their book with that's on the battery, and they match up. So as long as they're correct, everything is good. The pro part of that would be that it is automatic. You don't have to do anything. The only other thing that I wish it had that my other controllers do have is a 12 volt bus right here. Basically, I'll be charging LiPo batteries with my charger, and I can charge two ways with that thing. I can hook it up to 110 or I can hook it up to 12 volts. This one I can't because there's no bus for that. The nice thing about having that 12 volt hookup here is the controller, typically, if they have that, you can set up the parameters for the charging or for the battery to shut down. Let me start that again. So the load would shut down before the battery got too dangerously low. So there's a parameter here you'd set to cut this off at, say, 11.5 volts or something, and it would just turn this load off and protect your battery. This doesn't have that. But that's okay. That's why we have the inverter. We'll just take that 12 volts and make it into 110. One more thing I might do with this controller is there is a port here for a battery temperature sensor. I'll probably hook that up, lay it with the battery, and then the controller uses that temperature parameter to monitor and control charging rates. So it's another factor that goes into optimal charging of your battery. Okay, and the next thing we have is this 500 watt inverter here. The inverter takes 12 volts from the battery, converts it to 110 here for you. There's a couple USB charging ports on here. They work pretty good. I've already charged the phone. Now, this is a small inverter, 500 watts. Which will be plenty to operate my battery charger for my LiPos. However, if you want to run anything with a motor with this, say a fan, you're hot on the flying field, you want a fan, could be a problem. If you want to plug in your heat gun to make a monocoat repair in the field, it's going to be a problem. Because as you might know, anything with a motor in it, anything that has to get up spinning is going to draw a lot of current. It's going to spike out at first, and as the motor picks up its speed and the load goes down, that peak amperage will drop back down. Unfortunately, I've already tried the heat gun with this one, and it spikes out, and this green power light will turn red and there's nothing coming out. It just cannot handle that. Works fine for recharging the batteries, but if you're going to want to do more with it, if you want to run a fridge or a small something cooler or something, then anything with a compressor or a motor, this is probably not going to do the job for you. You're going to want like a 1500 watt, 2000 watt, and they also make them like 1000 watts, 2000 peak, or 2000 watts, 3000 watts peak, and that gives you the system. Basically it tells it to wait a couple minutes before it cuts out, because it knows that current's going to come back down, so it'll let it peak out, and as the motor is turning, the current draw goes way down. So this is just an entry-level sort of project box right here. This whole thing is really. So if you want to make a better system to do more for you, don't cheap out on your inverter. The battery, it's a 12-volt gel battery, 18 to 20 amp hour storage. Amp hour is the ability to push 1 amp for 1 hour. So theoretically, you could push 1 amp for 20 hours or 20 amps for 1 hour. But I already know that my current requirements is way, way, way below that. So not an issue with that. It's basically like a wheelchair battery. It's a gel battery, so I purposely picked the gel battery so that I can lay it down. They can be placed in any position at all. The wet cell, you have to stand it up, I believe. You can't lay it on its side, turn it upside down. And then we got another voltmeter here for battery voltage, and we have a master battery isolator switch. Something I'm going to do in the future, I have a 12-volt temperature sensor separate from the one for the battery. This has its own temperature sensor, reads the temperature inside this box, and will turn on a box fan, a computer box fan. I already have the switch. I don't know, maybe I'll get around to that someday. So let's get this thing plugged in. Manufacturer recommends on the controller that you hook up your battery first before you hook up your arrays. So we'll turn the battery on. Gonna go through a little self-check and put out a couple parameters. And there we go. Right now it's telling us the array is flashing error. It's not hooked up. There's no array juice coming in. This is battery voltage that you're looking at right now. And for some reason, this one, I can see it fine with my eyes, but through the camera, it doesn't look right. But it's fine as you look at it. A little bit more about that later. But let's get this array hooked up. All right, I got the array hooked up. It's a bright sunny day. The sun's hitting it pretty good. I'm sure we're getting pretty much the maximum out of it right now. As soon as I plugged it in, the controller did another self-check. The array is good. It's no longer flashing. We got a solid blue light, meaning charging. We've got these little idiot bars here showing you that it looks like it's 3/4 or more full. It's probably a little bit more than that because of the 1 amp charge. It takes 300 milliamps to run this whole thing without the array hooked up. So right now it's putting in maybe, I don't know, 6/10, 7/10 of an amp. So I'm gonna let that charge up for a minute, then I'll come back and show you what it looks like when it's fully charged. Okay, we're almost full. You can see we're putting in 0.8 amps of charge current to the battery. Remember, that's charge current. That'll come in important later. Now, right now we're basically got a little trickle charge going on here, a 0.5 amps or 500 milliamps. It says 800 milliamps, but it takes 300 milliamps to run this whole thing. So when the battery's full, the charging cuts out, you'll see that it still has 300 milliamps of charge current in here. So we'll wait for that to happen and I'll get right back to you. While we're waiting for that charge up to happen, here's the array. It's a 100-watt array, 12 volts. Now the parameters on this thing. Maximum power current 5.56 amps. Short circuit current is 5.98 amps. Max voltage 18. Open circuit 22. It's a nice unit, perfectly adequate for this type of system. We'll get plenty of power from this that we don't even need. The glare, it's hard to see that sometimes. That's amp hours since the last time it started charging. Now, it'll hold this value overnight. Say you put in, 2 amp hours charging in a day. That 2 amp hours will stay there all night long. Well, as long as you have the battery powered up, it will be. But as soon as you plug, or as soon as the sunlight hits the arrays again in the morning, and this little guy stops flashing, and that little guy's showing, then that amp hours will reset to 0. So it's a daily thing, which is kind of nice because you can keep track of that if you want. Okay, so this thing does have a few different charge modes. If your battery gets over discharged or dangerously low, it'll do a soft charge, which it charges gracefully up to 12 volts to get the battery up to where it should. If it's not in a soft charge condition, it'll go into a bulk charge condition, where it will draw whatever it can out of the array to charge up to where it wants to be as quickly as possible. And then from there it goes into absorption charge, which is like kind of like a trickle, I guess, a half amp trickle. That's almost what we're looking at right here. Remember, it takes about 200 to 300 milliamps to run this. Add the half amp charge, and that's what you got, 0.7. So that's where we're at right now. That tells me that we are on the final stages of charging, and it should finish here soon. I'll be right back as soon as it does. Okay, so now we're fully charged. The blue charge light is out. We have 100% up there in the corner. It's telling us it's full without 2 L's. That's okay. And then these 2 green lights are on when it's in float charge. Okay, so it's in a float charge. Reading the directions, it says that it'll maintain the battery at this level. Okay, let's explain what we're seeing here. So we know that our array is capable of 4.5 to over 5 amps of charge current maximum if it needed it. Right now we're using 0.4 amps, and I'm assuming to run the controller, to run this meter right there, that's what is required. If you turn the inverter on, goes up a bit. Let me just, goes up to 0.6, so another 300 milliamps. So what it's telling me is that it's now requiring 0.6 of an amp from the arrays to maintain this battery right where it was. Now, it's a little confusing because it says it's not charging. However, this is charge current. We know we have 0.6 amps going into the battery right now. And that is to run these devices that are running right now. So right now the controller is using a little bit of power to run, and it's using 0.4 amps, so it's pulling 0.4 amps from the battery, and at the same time the controller, to maintain the battery, is putting 4 amps back in, so it's a 1 in 1 out right now. Call that a trickle or float. Well, to me a float is the battery's completely disconnected. I have to turn this switch off to have a real float, but that's what the controller calls that battery mode. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. I just wanted to show you this little project I was working on here. Currently, we have a house picked out, a builder picked out. We're still looking for the property to put it on. We're headed down there tomorrow sometime for the weekend to do some shopping around. The MLS listings just aren't giving us enough, so we're going to go hit some for sale by owner type signs where they don't list them, and see if we can get something happening. This is just one of those little projects I figured I might as well kill some time right now. I have a lot of it, so I'm not flying, so I work on some of these other things that I been dreaming of doing. I try to keep them related. I know it's not flying, but I try to keep it related to the channel, and this certainly is a LiPo battery recharging station. I'm going to cycle this a few times over the next couple of weeks and see what happens. I'm going to get some load on here and see exactly how it performs. Right now it's not doing anything, so we won't be really sure until it's all done, tested. But thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to RC Taildraggin. Thanks to all the new subscribers that are still coming in, even though I've been a little sort of slack on the videos lately. We'll hope to get a few more out to you here, but really appreciate it anyways. Thanks for tuning in, and hope to see you next time with the next project. Take care, everybody.